Hey Wildcats, welcome to this week's Casual Friday, where we revisit the news. I'm your host, Leah Mulan Clark.
And I'm Ian Finley.
And I'm Marshall Bartley.
And we're here to tell you about what's happened this week. This week we're going to focus on what happened with Hurricane Irma. Do you have anything to say, guys?
So Hurricane Irma, as we can see, has been raging through the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm sure you've heard the news. Once a Category 5 hurricane, Hurricane Irma is finally starting to die down as a Category 2, now reaching the northern part of Florida, but we can see it's caused a tremendous amount of damage at this point.
It actually destroyed the island nation of Barbuda.
According to Michael Joseph, the president of the Red Cross, he estimates that nearly 100% of the island nation's infrastructure is destroyed from this massive hurricane.
And it completely devastated the island of Cuba, which was directly in the path when it was a Category 5.
Category 5 meaning that it has had sustained winds of over 170 miles per hour. And with that, as the storm raged closer to Florida, the storm did end up making up a little bit less of power, but it still caused tremendous damage. And we see that as it hit Florida, as it's causing tremendous effects on infrastructure.
Over 52% of Florida residents lost power. That's 15 million people. There are only 2,000 people at Redlands East Valley, so that's 7,500 revs.
Wow, that's a lot of revs.
That's a lot of revs.
As we can see looking in the aftermath, we look at current review of preparedness systems for the flood. And a recent survey noticed that only 1/4 of Florida drainage systems were ready to hold massive flood waters, meaning that when Hurricane Irma struck, only about 25% of the state was ready for its massive effects. You guys ready for something else to say?
Well, guys, it's time for our favorite segment, Who Said That?, where I ask our anchorman who said a quote. Today's quote is, "I believe that people and fish can coexist peacefully."
I got this. That's Aquaman, the legendary DC Comics character.
I'm sorry, Marshall, but you slipped up.
Boo.
I would actually say that Marshall was very close, but in fact, it was former President George W. Bush, the greatest president of all time, if I may add.
Finley, that is correct. Now, here's for a little bit more difficult quote. Instead of former President Bush's Bushism. The ability of big money to shape perceptions, where you have 4 anti-climate lobbyists for every single member of the House and Senate, is a big factor.
I'm going to say Al Gore. Could George Bush beat to be president?
Congratulations, Marshall. That's completely accurate. Guess you picked up the peel that time.
Ooh.
That's it for today's Wildcat Revisit the News. I'm your host, Leah Mulan Clark.
I'm Ian Finley.
And I'm Marshall Bartley. Thank you. Have a nice day.